If there's something you develop that you really want to drive a market demand for, one way to drive the market demand is to make the complement to that product completely free. So that would be like you are a hamburger producer. You produce hamburger patties. And so you do a massive sale on hamburger buns. You can get these rolls for like cents on the dollar. Everyone buys up hundreds of hamburger buns for their 4th of July, Christmas, whatever, barbecue. And now they need to buy your hamburgers. So you commoditize the complement to the product you really want to sell.
That's Dr. Elizabeth Seger, Associate Director of Digital Policy at Demos. She spent years at Oxford's Centre for the Governance of AI before leading digital policy at one of the UK's most influential think tanks. And her hamburger analogy cuts to the heart of why billion-dollar companies from Meta to DeepSeek are giving away their AI models for free. These aren't acts of generosity. They're building a user base which they're going to commercialize on adjacent services. It's just not totally clear yet what those services are going to be.
And the reason digital policy is important in this space is because digital technology touches everything. Open source, the question of how AI models are shared, who can use them, and who can build on them has become a really central and critical question. The ability of countries to build their own systems and to control their own systems, and that has lots of implications for the sovereignty of countries and also for the democratization of technology itself and allowing everyone to benefit from it. It is and it is not a binary. A lot of work has gone into trying to explain that the openness of a model is not a binary. On the one hand, you can have completely closed models. These are models that are developed by proprietary developers and are only used in-house. They're not shared with the public in any way, not accessible at all. And then on the very other end of the spectrum, you have completely open source models. These are models where the code, the data, the documentation, the weights, everything can be downloaded by the user onto their own machines, built on top of, modified, and their permissions in the license, in the open source license that grant permission to do that. So it's very permissive licensing. Sometimes people get annoyed when Meta calls its Llama models, open source models. And this is because they are open weight. You can download the weights, but they don't provide access to the training data, which is really important for doing certain things. And so some people wouldn't consider that an open source model because it isn't fully open. So on the open side, you have Meta, whether or not you want to call them open source, they are sharing large aspects of their model. Meta in China, DeepSeek is obviously a really big one. So those are like two big names in open source right now. On the closed side, probably two of the bigger names you'll have heard of are OpenAI and Anthropic. So those are the companies that have ChatGPT and Claude, respectively. On the closed side, one of the benefits of keeping the models closed is safety and control. If you are in the process of developing a new technology, you don't know what its impacts are going to be, how society is going to interact with it, you have much more control over your ability to cut off access to the model if things go wrong. You also, of course, have the option to monetize and put that firewall up and say, okay, pay us for access. On the other end of the spectrum, then you have these companies that are pouring billions into developing massive models, and then for some reason deciding to make them free to the world. And so that can sound a little counterintuitive. Why would a company do this? One is it's about building an ecosystem. It's one of the reasons why Meta is opening Llama. If everyone builds on this tool that you have developed, there's an ecosystem that's going to build up around that service, which means it might be more easily integrated with other kinds of tools you're developing. If there's something you develop that you really want to drive a market demand for, one way to drive the market demand is to make the complement to that product completely free. So that would be like you are a hamburger producer. You produce hamburger patties. And so you do a massive sale on hamburger buns. You can get these rolls for like cents on the dollar. Everyone buys up hundreds of hamburger buns for their 4th of July, Christmas, whatever, barbecue, and now they need to buy your hamburgers. So you commoditize the complement to the product you really want to sell. And so one idea around open sourcing AI is that maybe you have a company that really wants to sell computer chips and computer chips that their model runs really, really well on. And maybe their computer chips are a bit cheaper. And so they build a really good model that will run on their computer chips. Everyone uses their model, they get hooked on their model, and then say, well, let's buy your computer chips. So that might be a theory as well.
For a lot of us, we're still so overwhelmed by the capabilities and opportunities of language models that we haven't yet stopped to think about the open versus closed debate in too much detail. But it's increasingly important. Prices can change, access can change. So on the one hand, you have closed, Gemini, OpenAI, Anthropic, safe, predictable, but less control and can be expensive. On the other is open, Meta, DeepSeek. But there are still strings. Meta wants an ecosystem locked into their framework. DeepSeek, well, they might want to create competition to NVIDIA's chip monopoly.
The third thing, where you're eating free, this is the classic adage of, if it's free, you're the product thing. If you're using the free version of ChatGPT, free version of Cloud, I mean, I can't speak for these companies and what their plans are at this stage. But the next step, we're going to see, like advertisements started flooding onto social media, we're going to start having targeted advertising on these chatbot platforms and systems as well. Well, the option for emotional manipulation there is huge as well. I mean, you think about the advertising that's targeted on social media platforms, and they have a lot of data about you. They have your age, they have your contacts, they know what you're interested in. There was a research study that was done by McKinsey in partnership with Mozilla, looking at why different businesses adopt open source versus proprietary software and AI tools. And at the very top of that list, both for adopting proprietary and for adopting open source, was safety and security. It was the same reason. And a lot of that is going to have to do with, do you have the internal expertise to properly use and maintain these tools? Because if you do, then you have the opportunity to build your own system. It's on your own servers. You have complete control over how it's being used, where the data is being stored, how that data is being processed. And if you can maintain the safety of that system, keep it up to date, test it, add safeguard, like that, you have control. And that is an opportunity to build a really secure and safe system.
The McKinsey Mozilla survey on choosing open versus proprietary AI. Top reasons for both: safety and security. Same answer for opposite solutions. If you have the expertise, open source gives you great control, your servers, your data, your safeguards. But if you don't, well, proprietary means somebody else handles that for you. Increasingly, this is a conversation builders are going to have with their clients. There is no right answer, but there are real trade-offs.
The conversations people have, especially if they start building relationships with these chatbots, are going to be so emotionally rich, with like so much emotionally rich data, that, yeah, the opportunity for manipulation there is crazy. It would be like getting someone really emotionally hooked on a billboard. Like, they love that billboard. They just love it. And then you put an advertisement on it.